Friends, in my last lecture, I spoke about neoclassicism and its characteristics. Today, I'll be explaining you the figure of speech sonnet. Most of us must be knowing what a sonnet is. The simplest definition of a sonnet would be a type of a poem or a verse form containing 14 lines. Traditionally, these 14 lines of a sonnet consist of an octave or two quatrains making up a stanza of 8 lines and a sestate, a stanza of 6 lines. Sonnets generally use a meter of iambic pentameter and follows a set rhyme scheme. Iambic pentameter means that each line has 10 syllables in 5 pairs and that each pair has stress on the second syllable, or we can put it as 10 beats per line made up of alternating unstressed and stressed syllables. Now, before explaining what sonnet is, let's just trace its history in brief. The word sonnet was developed in Italy in the 13th century and so comes from the Italian word sonetto, which means a little sound or song. It was one of the most popular classical forms, and yes, it was also the favorite forms of Dante and Plutarch, whose sequence of sonnets to the lady whom he called Laura established the conventions of much Renaissance love poetry. In the first part of the 16th century, the form appeared in English and it was used by most of the major Elizabethan poets such as Spencer, Sidney, Daniel Drayton, and Shakespeare. After Milton, this form ceased to be popular for a time but was revived by the Romantics and has been much used since. Now there are different types of sonnets like the Miltonic, the Petrarchal, or the Italian sonnet as it is called, Shakespearean or the English sonnet, the Spencerian sonnet, and so on. They are all same in their constitution. All have 14 lines, but their division of 14 lines may be different. It could be either an octave and a sestate or 3 quatrains followed by a couplet. Even the rhyme scheme differs in different types of sonnets. But one more thing that is common in all the sonnets, besides the 14 lines and iambic pentameter lines, is the thematic structure. All have 2 parts. Thematic structure constituting of a problem and a solution, a question and an answer, or a proposition and a reinterpretation within those 14 lines only. Now we'll be talking about the various sonnets in brief. In the first place, let's talk about the Spencerian sonnet. It has a rhyme scheme which is AB, AB, BC, BC, CD, CD, and EE. This form was developed by the Elizabethan poet Edmund Spencer and was also called the link sonnet. It has the epigrammatic final couplet of the usual Shakespearean sonnet and often contains no break between the octave and the sestate. Now, we also have the Spencerian stanza, which is of 9 lines. It has a rhyme scheme AB, AB, BC, BC. Now, in the final line, that is the 9th line, an alexandrine is added to a 10-syllable line of the octave rima. It was used by Byron and later by Keats in The Eve of St. Agnes. Keats used the stanza, Shelley used the stanza in Adorning. As far as Shakespearean sonnet is concerned, it is also a poem of 14 lines in iambic pentameter divided into three quadrants and a concluding couplet. This is also called an English sonnet. It is a variation of the Petrarchal sonnet. The rhyme scheme generally is ABAB, CD, EF, and GG as the last couplet, or ABBA, CDDC, EFFE, and GG. Now, like many other English sonnetteers, Shakespeare used the final couplet to express the central theme of the poem. Now, coming over to the Petrarchal sonnet, this is also a poem of 14 lines divided into two parts. The first 8 lines, called the octave or the octet, whose rhyme scheme is ABBA, and the remaining 6 lines or the sestate usually rhyme CDE. Now, the rhyme scheme of the sestate admits some variation, but there are never a total of more than 5 rhymes in the poem. The octave generally contains a problem or the theme which the sonnet will develop. Now, sometimes an expression of indignation, desire, or doubt may occur in the opening lines, which will be resolved in the sestate. Originating in Italy in the 13th century, the Italian sonnet, as it is called, was brought to its fullest development by Petrarch. In England, Petrarch's sonnets were translated and imitated in the 16th century. English imitators, using iambic pentameter, took liberties with the rhyme scheme, though they retained the division of the sonnet form into 2 parts, as in Keats on first looking into Chapman's Homer. And finally, talking about the Miltonic sonnet, which, as the name suggests, was first introduced by John Milton. It retains the octave scheme of the Petrarchal sonnet, and the rhyme scheme of the Miltonic sonnet is ABBA, but which does not have a pause, but turn in the meaning at the beginning of the sestet or an invariable rhyme scheme within it. Thank you.